Last weekend, I downloaded this old will from Scotland's People. It's 20 pages long, and you can see the handwriting is okay, but it's not great, and it's a little bit hard to read. And here are some of the things that I did to make it easier to decipher. And these are just some basic tips for working with old wills like this for genealogy research. So the first thing to do is, and the first thing I did actually, is I change the image quality. So I open up this little dialog on my computer. You can do this in practically any serious photo application or even basic photo applications. You can just increase the exposure a little bit so it's lighter, it's a little bit easier to read, maybe bring up the contrast a little bit. So that made the text a little bit easier to read. But then the next thing that I did, instead of trying to pick, because, you know, of course, when you're looking at an old will, the first thing you want to do is just find the names of your relatives. And, you know, for instance, this guy, James Lamond, what are the names of his children or his sister or even his parents or where he lived? Those are the things that I want, but there's a lot of other like legalese in there too. I recommend not trying to immediately dig into the names and pick them out. And you can certainly pick out some names pretty easily right here, but rather try to read the document as if you were reading out loud. And I'll do this out loud because what I found is if you try to pick out individual words or names, it's much harder than actually starting at the beginning of the paragraph and reading. And basically what happens is you'll pick up the cadence of the language, assuming it's in your own native language. And then a lot of the words will just kind of come out naturally. And let me show you what I mean. So if I'm looking at this word here, this is a word I know, it's Aberdeen. This looks like an H or an M, but actually it's kind of a sloppily written at. So this is the starting phrase of this particular document. At Aberdeen, the 11th day of June in the year 1000, this is short for 1000, in 851. In the presence of Archibald Davidson, Esquire, Advocate, Commissary of the Commissariat of Aberdeen, compeased, I can't read that particular word, Robert Smith, Advocate in Aberdeen as procurator and gave in the... So you can see I was able to get through most of it. There's a couple words in there that are hard to pick out. And but reading it out loud, I think, is really a good way to read through old letters or wills like this because it just comes much faster than trying to pick out individual words. Now, if you do have a problem with a particular word, like this one right here, let's see if I can highlight that. Competent, compeased, compared. So what I'm going to do for this particular one is basically compare the letters that I do see, or I can at least determine the shape, and then compare them with something else. So for instance, the last letter in this word, it looks like a D, or it could be a T with a special flair, and you can see it kind of loops around like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a similar example of the same character elsewhere in the document, and then determine what that says to determine if it's the same thing here. And let me show you what I mean. So this D or S or T, or whatever it is, if I go up here and select this word, see how that's the exact same letter? It looks exactly the same. And this is the word and. So this is a D. So then I know down here, this is a D as well. So going through each letter, I can hopefully figure that out. So that's how I can approach something like that. Numbers, you can do the same thing. For instance, is this 1857, 1837, 1831? You know, it's not quite clear, and I can read the 1 and the 8, but the 3 and these two other digits here, I can't read them. So what I could do, actually, elsewhere on the page, you can see there's some other numbers over here, and assuming it's written by the same person, let's rotate that so I can see exactly what that says. So I can compare these numbers to the other numbers there. Now, in this particular case, for the date here, the person actually wrote it out in longhand below it, so I can read that instead. But if I didn't have the written equivalent of this number, I'd have to be doing some comparison to try to determine exactly what those numbers are. So anyways, that's how I'm approaching a document like a will, where I could do it the same for a letter, where the handwriting is okay, but it's not great, and I just need to be able to try to get through it. And those are the tips that I use. Basically improving the quality, reading it out loud, and then doing some comparison of mysterious characters to try to determine what exactly was written down on the page.